Is all doing this beautiful grand morning or afternoon or evening. Who cares what time it is that you came? Because we know time and everything else is nothing but a human construct that we created. But it's good to have you guys. So we're going to talk about something amazing and that our attention is sacred. You know, most suffering does not begin with what the world says about you, by the way. You know, it begins with what you silently agreed to believe. And that is where the trap starts. You know, not in the noise outside that happens, in the agreement inside, within us. Because at some point, most of us begin, consenting to a version of ourselves that was never truly ours. You know, we agree to labels, we agree to roles, we agree to fear, and we agree to the idea that we must perform to belong. And we agree to the pressure to become what others expect. And slowly, without even realizing it, we divide ourselves. We split off from our center. And we begin living as a reaction to the world instead of a revelation of truth. And that is the real prison. Not the thing people said, not the thing they believed, not even the misunderstanding itself. The prison is an inner consent. The hidden, yes. The silent agreements. But today, I want us to go deeper into that. Because freedom does not begin when the world approves of you. Freedom begins when you withdraw consent from what is false. The false self is not evil, by the way. It is not even always obvious. Often it is just survival. It is the part of you that learned to adapt early. It learned how to be acceptable, how to be useful, how to be liked, and how to avoid punishment, how to keep peace by becoming what the room wanted. And that is how many people build identity, not through truth, through adaptation. And at first it works to get safety. You get approval, you get belonging, but then the cost begins to show. Because every adaptation asks something from you and your soul. Every time you become a performance, you leave a piece of yourself behind. You become more, palatable, less honest, more accepted, less real. And eventually you don't know where the performance ends and you begin. You're just another character on a scene. And that is why so many people feel exhausted, fragmented, and unseen. They're not just tired of the life and from life. They're tired of the performance. They're tired of maintaining self that was built by consent to distortion. And even science helps us understand all of this and why this even happens in the first place. See, the brain is a pattern learning system and adapts to repetition. It forms neural pathways around what is reinforced. So if a child repeatedly learns that love comes from pleasing others, the nervous system basically starts slowly building around that principle. How's it going? But if a child learns that safety depends on staying small, staying quiet, staying agreeable, the brain encodes that as survival strategies. Over time, that strategy can become identity. Not because it is true, because it is familiar. And familiarity feels safe even when it is painful. And that is what makes conditioning so powerful. It doesn't need to be rational. It only needs to be repeated. And once repeated enough it becomes the lens through which reality is filtered. And this is why transformation cannot be superficial. See, you cannot just decide one day to think differently. If the nervous system has been trained for years to obey fear, you have to retrain that consent. You have to stop saying yes to patterns that keep you divided. And even psychology sees this too. People often build what is called a complaint self, a self that is shaped around external expectations, a self that learns to read the room before it reads itself, a self that becomes excellent at performance but poor at presence. And this self is highly aware of what others want, but often disconnected from what is truly feels. It can be charming, capable, responsible, even admired. But inwardly, it often splits. It's watching itself while it moves. It is editing itself while it speaks. It's scanning for rejection while trying to be loved. That is not wholeness. That is captivity with good manners. And the deeper suffering is this. The more successful the performance becomes, the harder it is to stop. Because now, false self gets rewarded. Now mask gets praised. The role gets attention. And the soul gets quieter. But quiet does not mean absent. It means buried. You've been buried deep down within yourself. How's it going? Nature is a mirror. See, nature does not live this way. See, a tree does not ask permission to be rooted. A river does not apologize for moving. A lion does not perform gentleness to be accepted as a lion. It just simply is what it is. In nature, there is an expression without shame, movement without betrayal, self-betrayal, form without pretending to be something else. Nature is the place I went to find some of the deepest healing in my life. It's where I saw real, to be honest. Where I saw the solid ground and I saw the rooted tree. This is one of the reasons nature can feel healing. Because nature does not ask you to become fake in order to be safe. It reminds you of a deeper law. What is alive does not need to imitate life. It only needs to return to itself. And that is what wholeness is. Not becoming someone new. No. See, no. Becoming someone new is just adding another layer to the many multiple masks and performances, roles that we've done. But remembering what is underneath the bullshit. What is underneath the consent to the lie. It's about remembering underneath all that shit that we believe about ourselves as this pure, beautiful diamond. The divine. I am that I am. Yo, girl. Yo, how's it going? And this is where agnostic truth becomes important. See, in agnostic's view, the world of appearance can be misleading. The visible world often teaches identification with what is temporary, fractured, and controlled. It trains people to mistake the surface for the source. It mistakes the role for the soul. It mistakes the image for the essence. But the deeper truth points to something before all of that. This is an awareness that is not divided. A presence that was never fragmented. A center that was never owned by the false story. And when you begin to remember that, something inside you changes. You no longer ask, how do I make the world approve of me? You ask, what have I been agreeing to that is not true? And that question is sacred. Because once you ask honestly, it starts to dissolve false identity at the root. Imagine a parallel world with different choices. Plato, right? Exactly. Different truths. Yes. I want you to think of a person who spent years being the strong one, the helper, the dependable one, the one who never needs anything. People praise them for it, right? They call them resilient, mature, reliable. But inwardly, they are tired because they have made an unconscious agreement. I will be valued for what I carry, not for who I am. So they keep carrying. And they keep showing up. And they keep holding others. And every time they need rest, they feel guilty. I used to be one of those people. The helper, right? Yeah, me too. And every time we'd ignored that, right? And we felt guilty for it. But every time they need help, they feel weak. Every time they need honesty, they silence it. And one day the body starts speaking, fatigue, resentment, numbness, anxiety, because the soul has been asking for a different kind of truth. The person does not need to become someone else. They need to withdraw consent from the identity that only knows how to learn love through burden. And that is not weakness. That is release. Internal division, when you keep agreeing to false identity, you create internal war. And one part of you wants peace. Another part of wants approval. One part wants truth. Another wants comfort. One part wants to say no. The another part fears abandonment. And because you have no resolve, the agreement, the parts keep fighting. Self-collapse, right? And this is excuse me. This is why so many people feel like they are always negotiating with themselves. They are divided not because they are broken. Yeah, it can go the other way too. They are divided because they have not yet withdrawn their agreement from the split. That is why clarity is so powerful, right? Divine union born from fire, the birth of divine child thing. Missing piece. That is why clarity is so powerful. Clarity ends negotiation. Clarity says, this is mine. That is not mine. This is true. That is false. This serves life. That drains life. And once that becomes clear, your energy stops leaking into illusions. See, philosophically, this is the question of sovereignty. Is what do you consent to? What governs your life? What holds authority over your choices? And if you constantly driven by approval, you have given authority away. If fear determines your behavior, you have given authority away. And if social pressure decides your values, you have given authority away. But if you can stand in yourself and choose from principle, then you are no longer a servant to the crowd. And that is freedom. Oh my goodness, so many comments. You know what's funny is it's so judgmental because you have no idea what my personal relationships. We're talking psychology and philosophy. Do you walk into a bank and start talking this way? Do you walk into your job and just sit and talk this way? Or do you I mean, I'm just whatever. That's your world. Go ahead. Enjoy your world, man. That's your world. And bless it. So, And that's your freedom. That's the freedom thing. Not doing, not doing whatever you want, doing what is true. And I do what is true, even when it is not easy. That is where integrity lives. Integrity is not performance. It's not proving anything to anyone. It is coherence. It is when you believe what you feel, what you say, and what you do begin to align. And that alignment is power. So imagine, I got a story for you. Imagine someone who has always been the peacemaker. They learned early that conflict was dangerous. So they become the one who smooths things over all the time. The one who keeps everyone calm. The one who never brings up the hard truth. And at first that seems noble. And sometimes it is loving. But over time, the peacemaker notices they have disappeared. They are always, adjusting, always accommodating, always making themselves small. So no one gets uncomfortable. And then one day, they realize something. They realize something important. Peace is not the same as suppression. Harmony is not the same as self-reassuring. Silence is not always wisdom. Sometimes silence is just fear wearing a spiritual face. That person doesn't need to become aggressive. They need to withdraw consent from the belief that their voice is dangerous. They need to allow truth to exist without apology. And that is how the false self loosens its grip. The body knows. The body knows when consent has been given to what is false. And you feel it in contraction, as tension, as heaviness, as fatigue, as inner conflict. The body often knows before the mind admits it. That is why learning to listen inwardly matters. If something consistently leaves you smaller, emptier, or more disconnected from your center, pay attention. Not everything that has familiar is life-giving. Not everything that is praised is true, and not everything that feels safe is good for you. Let me get to some of your comments. Hey, thanks, hypocrites. You got this under control, bro. I'm going to let you take over that. All right, man. You guys are great. So sometimes the body is trying to tell you, you have agreed to so much, to do too much. Relationships and roles. And our body is like saying, hey, wake up. This also shows up in relationships. People agree to roles that keep them stuck. The rescuer, the victim, the fixer, the silent one, the pleasing one, the dramatic one, the invisible one. And these roles can become cages, right? And when you live inside a role long enough, you start calling it personality. But it may just be a repeated agreement. The work is not to hate the role. The work is to see clearly and choose again. To say, I do not need to perform this role to be loved. I do not need to shrink to be safe. I do not need to betray myself to keep connection. And that is a major threshold. In nature, again, look at a seed. It does not become a tree by pretending to be something else. It can't go, well, I'm going to be a stone today. No, it's a seed. It becomes by releasing what no longer serves its form. The shell breaks. The old structure gives away, and growth often requires the death of a previous agreement. And the caterpillar does not become a butterfly by improving the caterpillar. It becomes by transformation, by becoming chrysalis. And that transformation requires surrender to the old form. And that is why many people resist. They want to grow without loss, but growth and release are tied together. You cannot keep everything and become new. Something must be left behind. Even an Gnostic's path is often about remembering what is real, remembering what was hidden under conditions. And it's like the diamond underneath all the shit. And the shit gets washed away, and it's remembering the spark that was never owned by the false world. And that remembering, you begin to see that the false self had authority only because you gave it consent. Not because it was ultimate, not because it was true, because you agreed. And agreement can be withdrawn. That is good news. You are not permanently trapped by what you once consented to. You can revoke it. You can return. You can stop feeding what fractures you, and you can stop obeying the old script, and you can step back into the center. There are moments in life when a person finally says no. Not a loud no, not a dramatic no, a clean no. All right, thanks, man. I appreciate you. I need to purchase one. Don't have percentage to purchase one. Can't really afford it. Who needs one, man? We don't need it. It keeps us out of the performance rate. But something interesting happens when that no is real. The body relaxes, the mind becomes quieter, and energy returns. Because a yes to truth always restores the system. A false yes creates division. A true no restores coherence. That is why some of the most healing moments in life are the moments when you stop pretending, stop performing, stop agreeing, and stop carrying what is not yours. And that is not selfish. That is awakening. What to withdraw consent from the need to be liked at the cost of truth. The role that makes you smaller, the fear that makes you silent. The belief that you must earn your right to exist. The story that says your value depends on approval. The identity built only for survival. The pattern that fractures your peace. Withdraw consent from what keeps you divided. What to consent to clarity, integrity, truth, discipline, wholeness. Silence when it serves. The nervous system learning safety and authenticity. The soul remembering itself. The life that is actually yours. That is the work. You do not need to fight every false thing in the world. You do not need to argue with every illusion. You do not need to defend yourself endlessly against what is not even real. The deeper work is simpler and harder. Withdraw consent. Return to your agreement to truth. Return your energy to what is alive. Return your attention to what is real. Return your life to the center, because the center was never lost. It was only buried under the agreements you made to survive. And now you can choose again. That is where freedom begins. Not when the world changes, when your consent changes. Most of what has kept you divided was never forced. It was agreed to. And that means it can be undone. So stop agreeing to the lie. Stop agreeing to the mask. I'll get to some of your questions in a second. And stop agreeing to the roles that drain your soul. Stop agreeing to the story that says you must betray yourself to belong. Withdraw consent. Return to truth. Return to wholeness. Return to the center. That is the path. That is the practice. That is the liberation. Hey, how's it going? Yes. I wouldn't say necessarily woke up in a sleeping pod. You have to understand everything's energy. And so one of the things I could only do to help understand what we are in is to basically have the only explanation of what that is. So to say that it's a construct that I can describe is it's like an energy force. But it's an energy force that encapsulated you. And everything here is a projection, like a projector, onto a screen. And our perceptions of internal is what we see on the external. And we've been believed and created into this divided system, like a prison system. So yes, I have 3 books out, Awaken, and you can find them on my link tree. And I do have them in the bio in different areas of here, but also on TikTok. If you go under Shake the Matrix, you click on the bio under there, and then you can see the link tree to Mystical Ariel, and it'll show you where my books. But they are on Amazon under Awaken series Ariel Hooper. There's 3 out, and I've got a 4th one I'm working on right now. So, all right. So I do that all the time through Please Come to My Door. You meet them with the same energy. Can't help it. So I awaken. All right. Thanks, you guys. I just bought a personality in my new clothes. Oh my goodness. You're too funny, man. All right, you guys, I gotta get going because I need to rest and my body's aching right now. So I can't be on here and chat too long. I gotta move around a little bit and take care of myself, and I have to go deal with some medical stuff today. But peace and love you guys all, and take care of yourselves. We'll see you guys tomorrow.